All right, it is 8 o'clock. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day number 45 of the Rankin Technical College online AWD C# programming class. Today is Monday, the 7th of August. I am taping. And as I said in the email that I sent out to you, normally but I believe it's important that you hear this. My oldest daughter is pregnant and she's due to give birth on Wednesday. My wife and I are planning on being there for the birth. So it's possible that either tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday, if she has it on one of those 3 days, you might get an email from me just explaining that I'm gone. So I'm going to automatically make that day a lab day. If that doesn't happen, if she doesn't have it till next week or this weekend or whatever, all right, today what I'm planning on doing is going over. I created one additional pretty simple C# SQL Server CRUD app that's very similar to what we have been doing, but I added the capability of full CRUD into it. So in other words, not just read, but also create, update, and delete. Having a couple problems with the update, and I don't know why, but we're going to go over all of that. In addition, that entire project is complete and it is out on the URL that you can see right here. All right. After we get done with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two, I call them mini apps. They're going to be smaller apps, but what I want to show you about those, all right, is going back to our book. We never really went over chapters 20 and 21, really 22 either, but this is going to give you a little bit of the flavor for what we would have covered. All right. They're not going to use a data grid view in 22, but we've been using a grid view, all right, in the last few programs. Now, tomorrow, just so you know, and I'm going to show you this email that I got a few weeks ago. Rankin Technical College, typically every summer, they require all full-time employees to go to a 3-hour session on various things. The one this year is high performance coaching. It is tomorrow morning from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. So this is it. I've read it and it's fine. All right. Tomorrow is the one that's at the Wentzville campus, which is the campus closest to me. So tomorrow morning, since I'm required to attend this, all right, I will be unavailable between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. As soon as the presentation is over, again, it should be around 11 a.m. If my daughter is not in labor at that time, I'm going to quick head home. It's only about a 10 to 15-minute drive from the Rankin-Wentzville campus to my house. All right. And I should be there for the rest of the period. So again, we will make tomorrow a lab. Then on Wednesday and Thursday, what I'm going to try to do is some of you may be confused as far as what you're supposed to be doing for this final project. So I'm going to walk you through what I've done so far on the project. And I'll give you some time on Wednesday and some time on Thursday. I haven't done very much. So I'm hoping between now and then, I'll be able to get more done so I can walk through with you what I'm doing. I won't be saving that as a Git repo, but it should give you some idea as far as what you should be doing. All right. Finally, as it says in there right now, for the rest of the week and next week, it says, as of right now, all of next week will be a lab for you to complete any late work you might have. Late work, your final project, remember that's due by midnight a week from tomorrow, and your electronic portfolio, which is due by Wednesday. You know, If your final project, if you need till Wednesday for that one as well, I'm not going to take off for anything for it. I'm going to be grading those Wednesday and Thursday. Finally, as it says there under the big paragraph here under please remember. All right, I went back and graded yesterday. Take a look at Inside Rankin to see what work you might be missing. Hey, I turned this in and you didn't grade it. Send me an email. I'll be glad to go and grade it. Finally, as far as that goes, as it says, I will accept any all late work through midnight Wednesday. All right. And I think Wednesday is the 16th, not the 15th. So that date is wrong. That should be the 16th, and I'll fix it later. After that, there's not much I can do. Again, Thursday, I will be grading all day long. All right. And Friday, my grades are due. Okay. Plus, I've got to get what are called student outcome assessments, where I've got to fill out all these forms on all of you, and grades are due by noon. All right. Remember, your final project is due here. If you do need another day and you need till Wednesday, I guess it's okay. All right. And if you got questions, concerns, as always, please email those. So with all that said, let's just get started. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to run for you. Let's see, this program that I've created. All right. And this program is this CRUD program right here. So I'm going to bring it up on screen and run it for you right now. Now this, just so you know, what I'm going to do is I've also included in here the notes that I went through with all the steps on it and all the code in it, etc. So I'm going to go back and bounce back and forth between these and the actual program itself. So let me open this up. Now this program, believe me, is far from perfect. There's a problem with it. One thing I'd literally consider an error, and another thing, there's something is not working right now, and I don't know why. But if we bring it up here as it loads, so this is what the program looks like right now. Okay, it's way down. Okay, it's very similar to what you've looked at before. What's different is when we went through this last week, it came up here and you could look at any record, I'd add, so I can add a new record, update, which isn't totally working, and you'll see it in a minute, where you can update a record, delete, where you can delete a record, clear, which should clear everything that's in here, and exit. So let me run it for you. And there it is. Now I put in 30 random records in it, and then I added a few more. So let's just look at this one right here. So this is John Johnson. Okay, you can see all the stuff that's in here. Now, what's supposed to happen is if I come through here and I make some changes, I have no idea what these zip codes are. All right, now I've changed almost every field. Notice one field that I put in here. This is actually, this employee ID is put in there, but it is a read-only text box because it's the primary key and you can't change it once you've set it. But I've changed all this stuff. And when I click update, I do get a message that the record was successfully updated. But when it refreshes, it hasn't been changed. I don't know what the problem is, but I'm going to still run through all the code with you. And we're doing that. And when we get done, we're going to build 2 more apps that are not going to look like this, but that are designed to show you how to work with databases. All right. So I'm going to run through all the steps in here and show you exactly what I did to make this work. The first thing I did, and I'm going to close this so I can reopen it, is once the program was up here like this, I wanted to open up what was called SQL Server Object Explorer. So if I go to View, you'll see if I go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things, there it is. SQL Server Object Explorer. For lack of better words, that's kind of the equivalent of me going in and opening up SQL Server Management Studio, or SMMS. All right. Now, when I do that, and yours may look similar to this, yours may look different. It's no big thing. But what I want to show you in here is the first thing that's up here, and I can't make this any bigger. I'm sorry. In fact, let's try doing it like this. I sort of can make it bigger, but I'm not going to be able to do much with it. I just want to grab this stuff that's right here and show it to you. All right, when you look at this right now, you may not have all 3 of these. You probably don't have this, and don't worry about it. But you should have something if you have gone in and if you have installed all of the stuff that I told you to install previously, you should have this. MS SQL Local DB, that is your local instance of SQL Server. In other words, that is SQL Server on your machine. All right. So why am I showing you that? Because if I open that up and then I open up databases, again, this is all the stuff I've done in the last few years. So don't let that throw you that any of that is in there. All right. But if I want to go in and add a new database, it's as simple as this. I can open this up under databases. I can right mouse click on here and choose add new database. And it asks me for a name, and it even shows me where it's going to be kept. Now, just so you can see it, I'm going to create a new database, and I'm going to call it AAA. I'm not going to keep it, but I want to show you this. So imagine I was doing something for the American Automobile Association, AAA. So I'm going to type in here AAA, just like that. Now you'll notice there is nothing right here that says AAA, and I'm going to click OK. And there's my database. Now, it's got all this stuff. It's got those views, etc., but none of that has anything in it. So if I click on tables, it says system tables, etc. But if I click on those, they're basically, this is all system stuff that's been created. All right, but there's nothing new that's been created there. All right. So let's imagine for just a second that I wanted to use this AAA thing right here that I've created. All right. And I wanted to now go in and create a new table. All right. So I'm going to go, I'm under AAA and under tables. I'm going to right mouse click on here and I'm going to choose add new table. Now, what you see here, and this is a little bit confusing. This is a little bit confusing. This is a window that's got literally the same thing on the top as it does on the bottom. This is it in more graphical format, but as you add stuff, this is the way that it looks in a textual format. Now, I could go in and put in my employee ID, first name, last name, etc. I could go in and put all that stuff in there. So I could come in here and I could change the name of this if I don't like it. For example, I could make this employee underscore ID. All right, I can make it an int. I don't want to allow nulls because it is a primary key. All right. And then I can come in and start filling in my other stuff. Don't worry, we're going to fix this in just a moment. So I can come in here and say first underscore name. All right. And I can make that a varchar. And let's make it a varchar of size 50. Bigger than I need. Nobody has a first name with 50 characters, but I'm going to put it in there anyway. And we will check this as well. All right. And then I can come in and put in a last name. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up so you can see as much of this as possible in here. So I'm now going to put in a last name. Again, it's going to be another varchar of size 50, and we won't allow nulls. Again, we're not going to allow nulls in any of our fields. So there's the second one. Then we'll have an address. So I'm into here, and now I'm going to put in address. All right, and another, and we'll make it then a city, and everywhere you see varchar, it's just a string. All right. So again, another varchar, size 50. All right. And then a state. Now for state, let's make it state code. All right. And we'll make it a char of size 2. So that's fixed length. Varchar, the var in there. I don't know why I put var binary in here, but I did. All right. The state code says in there char 2, which means the char in there means that it's fixed length. And I did these backwards. These say that we want to allow nulls. We don't want any nulls. So I'm going to get rid of all these. And you'll notice down here, they're changing from null to not null. That's good. That's what I want. So let's come in here and we'll put in our zip code. We'll again make it, let's just make it about size 15. So a varchar of 15, that should be big enough. We're not going to allow nulls in here either. All right, then we'll have our phone number. All right, which again will be a varchar. And 15 is still big enough. All right, we could make it bigger if we wanted to or needed to do so. And a department code. This is going to be an int. And again, we're not going to allow nulls. And finally, we're going to have a salary. All right, and that's going to be a decimal field, and it's going to be 11.2. I'm going to explain exactly what that means in just a second. So what we just did up here was to create what you see on the bottom. And that's really important, and I'll tell you why in just a second. All right, so I have come in here, I've created a new table, I haven't saved it. When I save it, it's going to ask me for a name. So I could put an employee or something else like that. So this right here, I am declaring my program's schema. I am telling the system to create a new table. And I'm letting the system know what the name of each of the fields in there is, what the data type of each of the fields is, and any constraints that I'm putting on any of those fields. The constraint for primary key is it cannot be null, and it is the primary key. For the first name, it's a variable length of 50, and it can't be null, and you can look at the rest. The only one that's in here that's kind of new is this one right here, this decimal. All right. 11 is the most digits that I can have. So if you imagine 99, 999, 999, 999. All right, that's way bigger of a number than I need. But that's 99 billion, 999 million, 999,999. And two of those will come after the decimal place. So in other words, the biggest number I'm expecting is 999,999,999.99. All right. Now, this is totally fine the way it is. If I click up here, okay, I can save this right now and it'll save just fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with what I've done. I do want to show you one more thing though. Notice in here, there is no auto increment. I can't type in here auto server. So I want to show you how you do it in SQL Server. So with my employee ID highlighted here, down into my properties window on the right, and you may or may not be able to see this. I can't help it because I can't make this window, the properties window, any bigger. But right down close to the bottom, it says identity specification. And as of right now, it says false. But notice if I click on here, if I click the plus sign, all right, I can come in and where it says false, I can double click on it to make it true. And then I can say the identity increment and the seed. And what that did was it added this. It added that this is an identity column. And what that means with that being an identity column is increment by 1 with each new record. And I also told it to seed it at 1. All right. Now, just so you know, because I'm trying to be complete here. We're coming near the end, and I want you to understand this stuff. All right. What if I didn't want to do it like this? Everything I've done in here is fine. It would save. There's not a problem. In fact, let's save it. All right, let's just save it. We'll get rid of it later. But I'm going to click on here to act like I want to, just close this. Okay. In fact, let's come in here and let's change the name in here to, we'll call this employee 1. Not a great name, but it's the one I'm going to use. Okay. All right. And now I'm going to click here. I'm going to click where it says update. And it says it's preparing to do all this stuff. Do I want to update my database by creating that table? And yes, I do. So I'm clicking that. All right. Now you may say nothing happened. Something did happen. I can now close this. I'm going to close it. And it may say, do I want to save it? And I don't. But if I come over here, and typically what you'll want to do all the time is refresh the database. And that's the thing way on the left. So I'm going to refresh. And I'll have to go back in and reopen it under AAA table. No, lo and behold, there's my table. DBO employee 1. If I click on it, and then if I click on columns, there's my columns. What I just put in. It says I've got an employee ID, which is a primary key, an integer not null, a first name and a last name, each of which are varchar 50 not null, an address, a city, each of which are 50 and not null, a state code, which is fixed length of 2 not null, a phone number, variable length of 15 not null, a department code, an integer not null, and a salary, a decimal of 11.2 not null. Now, if I come in here, there's other things that I can do as well. But if I do come in here on this and I say view data, There is no data, but I could come in here now and start putting stuff in. So for instance, I can come in here and let's just put me in. I'm not going to fill in a number for the employee ID. So Jeff Scott, 751 Wentzville, Missouri, 63385. The phone is 286-365. Oh, no, 314. 286-314-3675. The department code, we'll just put a 1 in there, and the salary, let's put $50,000. All right. Now I'm going to go down. Now I've got a record in there. All right. So let me close this. How do I know I've got a record in here? Well, let me refresh the database to make sure the change took place. And I'm going to go back to databases and my AAA. But now I'm in my database. I'm going to right mouse click on it and run a new query right here. And I'm going to say here, select star from employee 1. That's the database we just created. All right. And I'm going to run this. And lo and behold, there I am. Again, I can't make that any bigger, but you can see all that information was put in there. All right. I'm not trying to waste your time. I'm trying to show you how this stuff, one way it can be done. So I'm going to show you another way that it can be done. I'm going to stay in my query window here, and I'm going to close this. All right. Now, what I'm about to put in here, you've got these notes. When I save this project for you, I saved a thing in here called program notes. And I'm going to jump down into step 5 here, and I'm going to grab this. All right. So let me put it in, and then we will run over everything that's going on in here. So in here, this is what I just put in. Now, don't worry. I guess I've got a mistake in here. That should say not null and with a comma. That's why I'm getting the errors. All right. All right, again, what we're doing right now is I have just shown one way that you could add a record to a database, and now I'm showing another way. All right, so I've opened up this query window, and I put all this stuff in here. What is this? Well, if you notice, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are 10 fields I'm about to add. I'm creating a table. I'm calling it employee. That this is the schema for that table. It will have 10 fields. The employee ID is an integer. It's an identity field, which is similar to the auto increment we saw a couple weeks ago in MySQL. It will start at 1. Every time I add a new record, it will increase it by 1. That's the 1, 1, and it's my primary key. Then I have 4 straight fields that are all variable length. That's what the varchar means. None of them can be null. And I've got a first name, a last name, an address, and a city. Then notice I have a state code, and that's a char, which means it's fixed length. Must be 2, and it can't be null. Then I've got a zip code and a phone, each of which are variable length, can be up to 15 characters, can't be null. Then I have a department code. And with that department code, it's an integer that can't be null. Finally, I have a salary. And again, with those 2 numbers, the first number, the 11, means there is 11 digits. So imagine 11 nines, 999, 999, 999, 99. 2 of those digits will come after a decimal place. What that means is the largest salary I am expecting, that's a lot bigger than I'd need, but I just wanted to show that to you. So the largest number that I'm expecting is 999,999,099. That's 11 digits, 2 of which come after the decimal place. All right. So what I did was I first went in and created a table I called employee one, but I went in here and manually created it. Now I'm showing you how you can go and create it like this. So to create this now, to create this table employee, all I want to do is come over here and click this green button, not the one to run the program, the one underneath here that says execute. And I click it and it says commands completed successfully. All right, how do I know that that worked? Well, first of all, I can close this. I don't need this anymore. So I'm going to close it. It says, do you want to save it? No. All right, but I'm going to refresh my database by clicking this button right over here, and it says refresh if you put your mouse over it. Then I'm going to open up, I just created a dummy database called AAA, so it'd be right near the top. And there it is, and under tables, I've got the employee one that I created the other way that I just showed you previously, and the one we just did called employee. You'll notice if I open that one and I look at the columns, it has 10 columns, the 10 that I just gave you. All right. And it shows you they're all not null. It shows you for first name, last name, address, and city. They're all varchar of size 50. It shows you that the employee ID is the primary key and an integer. It shows you that the zip code and phone number are variable length up to 15 characters. None of these can be null. The department code is an integer that can't be null, and that the salary is a decimal. A maximum of 11 total digits, 2 of which must come after the decimal point. Now, again, if I come in here and I say, show me the records, view data, it's empty because I have not added anything yet. But now I can come in here if I want. Let's add Evan. Evan Gudmestead. All right. Address, I don't know what that address is. I think it's like 4113 Finney Avenue. It's something like that. The zip is 63113. The state is Missouri. Or wait a minute, let's see. The city is not that. The city is St. Louis. Missouri, the zip is 63113. Evan's phone, I think I know it, but let's see. It's 286-314, and it's something like 3976. I think that's what it is. Let's put him in Department 7, and let's make his salary $80,000. Now, when I get off of here, it's now been saved. So I can close this now. All right, I can come back to my database here. I'm going to refresh it again. And now I'm going to look under employee, which is what I just created under AAA. All right, under tables here and employee, and let's see if Evan's in there. All right, so view data. And there it is. Evan Gudmestead, 4113 Finney Avenue, St. Louis, Missouri, 63113, phone number, department code, and salary. So that's how. All right. And again, what I did between now and about 9 is we're going to go over this program right here. I've already got it out as a GitHub repository for you. I want to say that again. I already have this out as a GitHub repository for you. All right. The add works fine. The delete works fine. Clear and exit work fine. Update says it works, but it actually isn't updating the database. I don't know why. It's probably something simple and stupid because that's usually the kind of mistakes I make. All right. But what I have done in here, what I have added to this repo is a file. It's a text file. And these are all of the steps that I went through. So what I just showed you, now I called mine Acme Widget and I just redid it as AAA, but you get the idea. All right. I opened up the object SQL Server Object Explorer. I went over to view and I found it about 9 down, SQL Server Object Explorer. I opened up the server, not but the server, and this is the name. You should all have this if you've loaded everything I asked you to load. All right. Then I right mouse clicked on the databases folder and I chose the add new database. Again, when I just did it for you, what I put in there was AAA. That's what I entered for a database name, not Acme Widget. I did that previously. All right. It even shows you when you save it, going to C drive under my users folder, under JP Scott, which is I'm the user, under app data, local, Microsoft SQL Server, local DB, instances, MS SQL. And if I go there, so if I'd actually go there, so let me bring this up. Okay. And I'm going to put that in and put in enter. You'll notice there's AAA and it's got today's date on it at 8/13. And here's Acme Widget, which I did over the weekend. And there's both an MDF file, which is my Microsoft database file, and an LDF file, which is a log database file. You should never go in like this and I wouldn't want to come in here and right mouse click on it and bring it up. First of all, it's telling me you cannot open it because it's garbage. It's a binary file, and you remember that back from chapter 17 when we talked about files. If I try to bring up the database, it gives me the same error. All right. You want to use the right software to bring it up. I'm just showing you where it lives. That's all. All right. But again, I've given you all the steps that I used to do this. What I just did in front of you right now was once I created the database, I right mouse clicked and I chose the new query option that opened up that query window. And then I pasted this in. In fact, I copied it. I literally copied it in. All right. Now I'm saying here, populate the employee table with 30 random records. I made these up. I literally went out online. All right. And there's a bunch of sites that you can use online to get fake data. All right. So what I asked for those basically was I asked that it give me a first name, so James, a last name, Smith, an address, 431 Cactus Street, a city, Fairhope, a state code, AL for Alabama, a zip code, 36532, a phone number, 778-207-8729, a department code, 1 in this case, and a salary. Oops, sorry, try that again. A salary, which in this case was 52,639. Literally, I went out and asked online, can you generate 30 first names for me? And it did. 30 last names for me, and it did. 30 random addresses with city, state, and zip, and it did. 30 random phone numbers, and it did. Finally, this I just made up the numbers because those are 1 through 7, those numbers. And then I asked for 30 random numbers between, it was like $40,000 and $100,000. So that's what I've got. So let's see if here right now, all right, if I come in here right now, I've already run this. How do I know? Well, look, if you notice, we've got James Smith, Mary Johnson, Robert Williams, Patricia Brown. And if I go on to my program here and I run it, again, I know it's hard to see here, so let me make this a little bigger. So there you can see there's James Smith, Mary Johnson, Robert Williams, Patricia Brown. I've added those. All right. So literally, I went into, like I showed you before, I went into here, I right mouse clicked on my table. I could do it again, but I'd be adding the 30 more records in that are the same records as the one I've got. So really what I wanted to do was to go over to the database, right mouse click, choose new query, then paste that in. So I pasted in into here that command right here, starting here in line 39 and ending in line 72. All right. After I did that, then I kind of put the database aside and I went back and I built the application. All right. Well, what do I mean? Well, you can already see if you take a look. So let me close this. All right. And let me close this. This is the application that I built. So as you can see in here, that is a read-only text box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 text boxes. Each one of those text boxes represents one of my 10 pieces of information. All right, there's 9 here, and the other one is the employee ID. Now, what that's often referred to as is seed data, SEED data, because what I'm doing is I am seeding the database with some random data. So it has something when I start. All right. So when you look at this, I did go back and all of the stuff that's in here is named. All right. Not only did I do that, I've set it up so when you run this, all right, and let's say I want to come in here and just put in some stuff. Remember, this is read only, can't do anything there. But if I come in here and do this, and I change my mind, I can either click clear or I can come up to the menu and click clear and everything is cleared. All right, so that, as you can see, that is working. All right. So we came in here, we created a database, we created our schema, we filled that table schema up with 30 random records. So we populated the table with 30 records. Then we built the GUI. All right. At the top of my program, I want to show you this. So I'm going to go over the code here. At the top of the program, and this thing is about 300 lines long. I'm going to go over most of it with you between now and 9. But if I go up to the top, all right, this is the key line right here. All right. In fact, I don't even need this one here anymore. I did this one way. In fact, I'll leave it there and I'll explain what happened in a minute. This line says I'm going to be using SQL client. What that does is it allows me to create all these different types of variables here and more. If I comment this out or I remove this, I'm going to eventually get errors in here. There you go. It doesn't know what any of this is. So if I'd have left it out and I come in here, it'll say, you need that using statement. There it is. It added it for me. As soon as it's in, boom, it comes back. So we've talked about these before, but the SQL connection is going to be the literal connection that gets set up between my computer and, or really, I should say, the C# running on my computer and the SQL server database. That's the connection. Anytime I'm going to run a command to tell me to insert something, to select something, to update something, or to delete something, I'm going to be using type SQL command. And I just called it SQL CMD. So I call my connection SQL con. I call my command that I run SQL CMD. I call the data table where I'm going to put my results table. And when I read this stuff, I'm using an SQL reader, data reader that I'm calling SQL reader. That may or may not make sense. And if it doesn't, it's okay. All right. Then notice I've got this routine right near the beginning here. I'm going to move this over. And I'm going to move this over. You still won't be able to see all of it, but you'll see most of it. This is how we create a connection string in code. If you remember when we worked on the one last week with MySQL, we built this in stages. We defined the server, we defined the database, we defined the username, and we defined the password. When you work with SQL Server, you don't have to do all that. But instead, this is going to be my connection string. So that SQL con that you saw right here, that's going to be set equal to a new SQL connection using this con string right here. So what are we doing here? We're letting the system know right here, we're letting it know that this is our server. So this local DB, MS SQL local DB, where the heck did I get that? Well, if I go back here again to where we were when we had this open, right here, it's got here local DB in parens backslash MS SQL local DB. All right. And it's letting me know that's my local server. That's it. That says I'm using my own machine. If I was building this machine, I'm sorry, if I was building this application to go run on a machine for a company, it wouldn't be local DB. Then this would be changed. So rather than referring to my machine, it would be the name of a database server someplace. So that's what the server is. Then next, I say database equal. That's the name of my database. So if I were to change this right now from Acme widget to AAA, and I don't think it'll hurt anything to do this. We'll find out in a minute. All right, but I'm going to change it to AAA. Doesn't matter. I don't think that's case sensitive. All right, but if I do a file save all on here and I run the program again, well, notice now all that's in there is Evan because I'm using a different database with a different employee table in it. All right, so that's in there. I'm going to change it back again to Acme underscore widget. And why did I use Acme underscore widget? Again, you may or may not remember, but what I did in there, all right, what I did in there was I used the same name that we used when last week we were running MySQL and we were using PHP MyAdmin. So now it's changing it back to Acme widget, saving it, and running the program again. I should get my 30 some records in there. There they are. All right. So Also, the next thing that's in there says integrated security equals SSPI. Now, you can look this up if you want, but basically what this thing in here is saying is there is some built-in Windows security. All right. And I'm just saying I want to use it. We're using Windows authentication. All right. So again, we create our connection and then we open the connection. So one of the things that's kind of, for lack of better words, kind of poor about doing it like this is what you have to do is you're constantly opening and closing your connection to the database. What I'm going to show you in the two apps that I will write after the break is that it is possible to do that without doing any of that stuff. All right. Okay. So this is being called virtually anytime I want to change something, anytime I want to read something, anytime I want to add something, anytime I want to update something, anytime I want to delete something. Okay. So that'll be called virtually all the time. So next, let's go over these buttons right here. All right. I'm going to keep going. It's already 8:51. This may take me a half an hour yet. I don't know. When we get done, we'll take a 10-minute break. And after the 10-minute break, I'm going to come back and write these two apps to show you how to write these in another way. All right. So when we click the add button or when we choose the add menu item with the button or with the menu item, either way, we're calling this routine called attempt to add new record. So this is a routine I wrote. All right. So let's go over this routine. Now, it may or may not make a lot of sense to you, and it's okay if it doesn't. I'm first setting my connection string. We just looked at what that was. That's setting my server, etc., and it's opening the connection. Then, and you'll notice this is all in a try-catch block, because when you do database stuff, there's at least a chance it's going to fail. I want to say that again. When you do database stuff, database operations, CRUD operations, creating something, which is what we're looking at now, reading something, which is just reading it in, we'll look at that in a bit, updating something, which we'll look at in a little bit, and deleting something, which we'll look at in a little bit. So this is the command that we want to have run. It's a new SQL command, so we're assigning it to that SQL CMD variable that we set up here. All right. And what are we doing? It's not that different from what I showed you into here. This says insert into employee, and it's got the field names and then the values, and we're doing multiple records. But when we do it in here, we're trying to add a single record. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to run it in a minute. But if I come in here and I'm going to put in a bogus person, I'm not going to put in an ID, but I'll put in a first name and a last name and an address and a city and a state and a zip and a phone number and a department code and a salary. When I click add, what the system then is going to attempt to do is insert that record. Now, this is already 300 lines long. I did not put in here, I could have used the validator program and made sure there was something in each one of these fields. That would have been a good thing to do. All right. I could have gone in and checked for the employee. Well, the employee ID is being set automatically, but this department code, I could have come in there and done an isInt32 from the validator class. And then I could have also checked to make sure, because we only have 7 department codes that go from 1 to 7. I could have made sure that was done. The salary is between 0 and $1 million. So I could have gone in there and done in there, is decimal, and I could have done the is within range from that validator class. I didn't do that because that would have made this program, instead of 300 lines, probably 500 lines. All right. And I wanted to make it where you could take a look at it. So this is the command we're running. We're telling it to insert into employees these values. Now, when you look at this, it may look confusing. It's got @ sign in parentheses, @ sign first name, comma, @ sign last name, comma, @ sign address, comma, @ sign city, comma, @ sign state code, comma, @ sign zip, comma, @ sign phone, comma, @ sign department code, comma, @ sign salary. Right? Those are the values that are represented by those text boxes. We're telling it to use the connection we just, try that again. We're telling it to use the just opened, right up above in our set connection. Then we've got to come down here. The system has no idea what @ first name, @ last name, etc. means. So what we're doing in here, for lack of better words, let's put a comment in here that says sync up the @ first name, etc. above with their text box equivalents. So it says @ first name, you're grabbing from that text box, @ last name, you're grabbing from that text box, etc. All right. And I've noticed right now, looking at it, there's a mistake in here. So I'm going to fix it right now. All right. This is correct. The department code has to be parsed into an integer. The salary I should have parsed into a decimal. Like that. Now, again, if I run this program, I'm saying this again, if I run this program and I leave any of these fields empty, remember we had not null sign for all of those. So if I leave any of them empty, I'm going to get an error. All right. If I take the department code and put something non-integer in there, I'll get an error. If I take the salary and put something non-decimal in there, I'll get an error. So again, these are syncing up. I'll just say, how about this? They're really mapping up. All right, it says when I use this, what I really mean is this. When I use this, what I really mean is this. So you might look at that and go, fine, why didn't you just put those in there then? All right, this is called a dynamic query. That means that it's getting the values as the program is running. So it expects those @ signs in there. We could have called this anything we wanted. It didn't have to be first name. We could have just called it FN for first name if we wanted to. In fact, I think later I even did that on one of them just to show you that. All right. So after we map that up, then we run this. Now it sounds kind of weird because of what it says here. It says execute non-query. All right. When you execute an SQL command, if you get information back, you're basically doing an SQL execute query. When you do a non-query, so this non-query you use for either an add or an update or a delete. It doesn't return anything. If I were to run this from my query window, it would come back and it would say, oh, okay. It would say 1 record created or something like that. All right. So what I'm going to do is this, just to show you. All right. So let me save this. When we get done running that query, we close our connection. We give a quick message box that just says record selectively saved. It does this. What this does is it updates the data grid view. All right. And then it clears everything it clears the text boxes. Now, and finally, if it doesn't work, okay, if it doesn't work, we just give you an error and we close the connection. Okay, now I want to show you what's going to happen in here. So I'm going to run this, but I'm going to run it twice. All right, the first time I run it is I'm going to run it using the program here. So I'm going to come in here and pardon the goofy names, but I want to make sure you know what I'm doing. So I'm going to put in here Donald Duck address 1234 Disney Place, city Orlando, state Florida. I have no idea what the zip code is, so I made one up. Phone number, department, salary. All right. So you can see exactly what I did right there. I did not put in an ID. Also, when you look down here, you'll have to look yourselves, but there is no Donald Duck in here. All right. So now if I go and I click add, I get record successfully saved and I click OK. Now, if I go back down to here and I look, there, lo and behold, is Donald Duck. Now, part of the problem I'm having with this, notice what it did here. It added 1,000 onto this. It's only supposed to add 1, but it's adding 1,000 when I do that. I got to look at that. I don't know what the problem is, but I've got Donald Duck, 1234 Disney Place, Orlando, Florida, etc. All that stuff is in there. Now, what is happening when I do that? What is happening? I'm going to close this and I'm going to show you how I could have done the same thing, but done it in here. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go down to my Acme widget database, which is right here. And I'm going to go into my employees if right here. So if I open that up and I view the data, there it is. And the last one is Donald Duck that I just added. All right. But what I could have done in here is I could have come back to my database, right mouse click on this and choose new query. Okay. Then I'm going to steal this from right here. All right. And I'm going to put in a command and I want you to be able to see it. So I'm inserting a new employees or new employee, first name, last name, address, city, state, zip, phone, department, and salary. Well, let's put in here Mickey. All right, let's give him a different address. So 4455 Disney Place. All right, I'm going to put this over multiple lines so you can see all of it. Again, Orlando, Florida. I don't remember what I put in for a zip code, so I'll just make one up. Phone number, let's say again, 222, I think it was, 333-1111. We're going to say he works in Department 6, and he makes $33,333 and 33 cents. All right, so now I'm putting that in there. I don't need that comma. Okay, that's why I had that error. So now I'm going to tell it to run this query by clicking this button right here. So I'm going to click that and it says 1 row affected, which means it worked. So I'm going to close this. No, I don't want to save it. I'm again going to come in just like I did before. And I'm going to right mouse click on here and say view data. And now down at the bottom, there's Mickey Mouse. And let me close this. Let me shrink this down. Let me run the program again. So I'm going to do a, even though I don't have to, a file, save all. I'm going to run the program again. And now down on the bottom, there is Mickey Mouse. So there's two ways I can do this. I can go in and add data using SQL Server, all right, or I can add it using my interface. So why the heck would you get two ways of doing it? Well, what should make sense to you is if I'm a person who knows nothing about databases and you give me this GUI and you say you've got to fill in these 9 fields and hit this button, I can do it. On the other hand, if I'm a database person, I can do it that way. All right. Okay. So that's the add. Next, we've got the update. And again, update isn't working correctly. I don't know why. All right. But attempt to update, existing record. And I call it either from my update button or from my update menu option. I again set my connection string. I again have a try catch statement in here. So let me again make this a little smaller and move this over there. All right. So what I'm telling it to do here is I'm telling it to update my employee table, set first name equal to FN, and you'll notice I renamed all these. And this time I didn't use first name, last name, address, etc. I use smaller names. I'm again associating each one of those names with a text box. All right. These are called parameters. All these things in here are called parameters. I'm telling it to run the command to add these parameters with these values. All right, so I'm saying I want to set the first name equal to whatever is in the first name text box, the last name, whatever is in the last name text box, etc. for all of these. But I only want to do it. Oops, try that again. I only want to do it where there's a match between the employee ID that I just entered and the employee ID that's in the database using my connection. So this may be very confusing. So this name here is the database name. That's the name in the database. I've got a field in there called first name, one called last name, one called address, city, states, state code, etc. This is the value that I want to put in there. So that's the value that's in this text box or this text box, etc. But we need that where clause, because if we didn't put a where in there, it would change everything. It would change every record. We don't want to do that. So whenever you use either an update or, all right, when you either use an update or, all right, or you use a delete, you always put a where clause in there like that. Now the where is working. For some reason, the update isn't, and I don't know why. So I again tell it to execute the query. All right. Tell it to close. Say a record is successfully updated. Again, reload the data grid view and clear everything out of the text boxes. Now, just to show you, okay, I'm going to grab this command right here. I'm sorry, not the insert. I'm going to grab this update command that we've got right here. Just to show you that we could do this from the database as well. All right, I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to again open up my query window. This is wrong the way it is, but we'll fix it right now. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to put all of this back in. But you run it differently when you run it from inside of the database. This is what I want to show you. Oops, try that again. All right. Now, this 4002, I believe it was, let's double check. So let me run this again. I'm going to update Donald Duck's record. He was 4002. All right. So I'm going to tell it here, inside of here, I want to update an employee. I want to set the first name equal to, let's just say, hey, we know him pretty well. He's not Donald Duck, he's Don Duck. All right, I'm going to just change all these just so you can see that they're going to change. All right, doesn't matter if I can put spaces in here. It should work just fine. We're going to change it to Don Duckworth. All right, oops. The address. Now, all these that are varchars must be put in double quotes because they're strings. Let's say instead of Orlando, we'll put Key West. I don't know why, but that's fine. And you don't have to change all of these. We could just change one field if we wanted to. That would be fine. But I'm going to do it with all of them. I think it already was Flora, but that's okay. I don't need that there. So I'm telling it that what I wanted to do is set all these values as shown, but only for the employee that has an ID of 4002. If I didn't put that where in there, that would change every employee. So every employee would be Don Duckworth, etc. All right. So with that in there, I'm going to tell it to execute it. And it says incorrect syntax near where. Well, let's look. All right. Set this, set this. Sorry. Near the where. Phone salary equals. I may have to put all of this in parens. I don't remember, to be honest with you. See if that fixes it or not. No, still doesn't like it near the keyword where. It's very quickly, because I don't want to waste anybody's time doing this. So I'm just going to Google it. Looking for a simple example in here. Of course, I can't find one, but we will. Update table name, set all this, where this. So let's keep that one here and let's move this down. So update, I've got employee, set. According to this, I don't need parens, and that's okay. Where no, that's correct syntax according to this, but it doesn't like something. It is saying incorrect syntax near the keyword where, which means it doesn't like something between here and here. which confuses me because I don't see anything that looks wrong. Not missing a comma. Should have commas at the end, except not at the end of the last one. All right. Well, that is the right syntax. That's kind of what I'm trying to run in here. I don't know why it's not working. I don't want to waste any more time on this. All right. But that is the right syntax. But if I come in here and run this, and I click on Duck's record, there it is. So I make the same kinds of changes. Let's just make this Don Duckworth. Let's just change those two things. So it should go to Don Duckworth. And if I click update, it says that it was successfully completed. It does redraw this, but it doesn't change them. So there's an error in my code. I just don't know where it is. All right. But what I was attempting to do on here was to at least give you an example so you can see when we run these other two programs after the break how much simpler it is to not do it this way. All right, so even though that didn't work, that was the update. Then we've got a delete, which attempts to delete an existing record from either the button or from the menu option. So again, you can see very similar to what we've been doing, but the command is much simpler. This is the whole command right here. Delete from table name. So that'll be delete from employee where, and then you just have to give it that number. All right. And then there's only one number, one thing in there, and that's the ID. All right. Let's see something quickly. Oh, okay. So when we get done, we want to say record successfully deleted. Again, redraw the grid view and clear out the GUI. If it didn't work, give us a message. So you'll see with this one, it's pretty simple. So if I don't want Mickey Mouse anymore, I click there. That brings up Mickey's record. I click delete. I said, and it says record successfully deleted. It redraws it, and Mickey Mouse is no longer there. All right. In the same way, I should, repeat, should be able to come in here. Again, bring up a query window and say delete from employee where employee ID is equal to 4002. I think it's that's what it was. If it's not, we'll know real quick. Run it, says it worked. All right. So if I come back in here again, whoops, to my program, I don't want to save that, and I run this, you'll notice when we look at the bottom, Donald Duck's not there anymore. So I showed you working add. I showed you a working delete. The update, like I said, was squirrely. I don't know why it didn't work. The clear does just that. I showed you that before. Exit is just our exit. So to finish this up then, all right, there's a search for record in here. All right. And that isn't working very well either, because what I would like to have happen is when I'm going to do an update or when I'm going to do a delete and I run this and I choose, let's say, this record at the correctly, that's all correct. This should change. So the only thing showing in here is John Johnson. That's not working. So I've got my share of problems in this program. All right. And what I'm going to do is look at it after class today and put out a revised version. It'll be out there by the end of the day. See if I can fix some of this stuff. All right. Okay. This upload data, all it does is it redraws the data grid view with the new information in it. That's all. Okay. And the well, clear button is nothing new, which is just going to clear everything out. This is the newfangled thing I showed you before. So rather than saying txt first name dot text equal double quote, txt last name dot text equal double quote, and doing that for all 9 fields, I tell this to go through there, and if it finds a text box, make sure it has nothing in it, which is a little cleaner. And then the exit is just our exit program, show message. We upload, so this again is going to fill this when we start the program. This is kind of neat. This says right here, anytime I click on any one of my 30 records that are in here, fill up the text boxes. Okay. And that's it. So it is 9:21, took longer than I thought. I'm going to take till 9:30. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to write 2 more applications for you. All right, let me do a file save all on this. I am going to update this a little later today and try to clean it up. If I do, I'm going to also come in here and try to update this and clean it up as well. These instructions. All right, see you in 9 minutes to go and write another application. I'll be right back. All right, it's 9:30, so I'm going to continue on. Now, we just finished up with a program, the one that's on the screen, where we showed one way working with databases. And what I mean by that is you'll notice we had to create a connection. We had to have a thing for our commands. We had a place for our tables, etc. And we were constantly opening the connection up. Then when we did something, so we opened the connection up, we did something, we closed the connection, we did something else, we opened the connection, we did something, we closed the connection, etc. It's kind of tough always having to keep in charge and worrying about opening and closing all these connections. It's sort of a pain in the butt, for lack of better words. All right, so let me close this. And let me mention to you, I've got this slide that I saw from a presentation I watched this morning. Now, there's 3 other ways that you can build these applications, and they all have to do with what's called the entity framework, or the EF. Now, the EF is the subject of chapters 20 and 21 of your book. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to build a database first and a code first application. All right, between now and the end of the class today. All right. Now, what's the difference? Well, when we build these applications, a database first, a code first, or a model first, we don't have to worry about these connections ourselves, etc. Yeah, there's still a little bit of stuff we have to do, but it's basically one line of code, and you'll see it very very simply in just a few minutes. Now, when you do database first, you create your database, you design your table, all right, and then the actual classes that get created are created automatically by you using a wizard and clicking some buttons. That's kind of nice. So we'll do one of those first. Then we'll reverse it. So rather than doing the database first and having the system generate the code, we'll do the code first. We'll create our classes, and we'll have the system generate the database for us, the tables. All right, now 2 more things. First of all, this way right here, code first, those of you that next semester will be in the AWD1100 class with me, Database-Driven Website Development 2, that's the method we're going to use. For everything we do is going to be code first. All right. Secondly, you'll notice there's another one here I didn't mention that's called model first. It's very rarely used. You're going to see a model when we do this one, but you very rarely start with a model first because it's clumsy, for lack of better words. All right. Now I'm going to build this. I've got a set of steps again, and I'll provide the set of steps for both the database first and the code first after I do these. But what we're going to do right now is we're literally going to come in and create a new project, a database first project. And then when we get done, we'll do a code first project. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to try to make my life a little bit easier before I even go into Visual. Well, let's do that. We'll go into Visual Studio. That's fine. And we'll create a new project. Now, to keep this as simple as possible, I'm going to create a console app. We're not even going to worry about a GUI right now. We just want to make sure we can connect to the database and do all that neat stuff that we want to do. Okay, so I'm going to create a new project. In fact, let's come in here. Let's create 2 folders before we even do that. So I'm going to create one folder here that I'm going to call database first. And I'm going to create another one next to it that I'm going to call code first. All right, and we're going to create an application for each one of those. Let's do the database first one first. So start this up, create a new project. It will be a console app.NET framework, and I'm going to give them the same name. So this first one will be database first, and that'll be the name of the project and the name of the solution. And we're going to put it into a folder that's also named database first, which is empty right now. All right, so we've got all that stuff. Again, it's going to be a console app, and I'm going to click create. All right, so we've got all that stuff. You can see we've got this, there's our namespace, etc. Now, to make my life a little bit easier for me, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create the database myself. And what I mean is, I'm just going to right mouse click on here, choose add new database, and I'm going to, come in here and just create this. And again, I'll call it the same thing. So I'm going to call this database first. Okay, so I click OK. And now I've got a new database in here right there that's called database first. There's nothing in it. Totally fine. All right. So we want to create the database first. All right. And so what are we going to do? Well, let's come over to the database here. Let's right mouse click on it. Let's choose new query. And pretty much the way we did it before, all right, where we came in here and we grabbed this, I'm going to do the same thing. So we're about to go in, and remember, this is the schema, all right, for our database. We're creating a new table. The table is called employee. It has these 10 fields in it. All right. The first field is our primary key. It's an identity field, so it'll start at 1 and be incremented by 1. Then we've got 4 straight varchars of size 50. Then we've got a char or a fixed length of size 2. Then we've got 2 varchars of 15, an int, and a decimal. And again, none of these can be null. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just grab all this, copy it to the clipboard, go into here, and I'm going to paste it in. Now you might say, this is the exact same thing you just did. Yes, it is. But what is going to happen here, and I didn't fix that either, so that should say not null. Whoops. All right. Is over here, eventually it's going to create a new class for us called employee without me having to do any extra work. So we're creating the table. Everything is cool right here. Let me go back to that and fix that. Why I didn't fix it before, but I didn't. There we go. All right. Now, right now there's nothing in database first, but when I click this, if it says, if it gives me command completed successfully, now I can refresh my database. All right, go into my database that's called database first that we just created. Go to tables. I can go to, there it is, DBO. DBO is database object, DBO.employee. I can look at the columns. There they are. I could look at the keys and other stuff if I want to as well. All right, so I now have this table in there, is what I'm telling you. Okay, well, that's good. That's the first thing I wanted to do. So I came in, I created a new console project. All right, I went to my SQL Server Object Explorer. I opened up my local server, which is in parentheses, local DB / MSSQL local DB. I right mouse clicked on the databases folder and I chose add new database and I typed in their database first. All right. Then we right mouse clicked on that new database and we could have chose new table there. So we could have added the table right here. I could have right mouse clicked, chose add new table and put all those things in there manually that I just did. But instead I wrote what's called a script thing for me, this script. All right. So now let's hook this thing up to Visual Studio. All right, and our C# program. So let me take this, let me do right now a file save all, and let me, actually it's trying to save this query and I don't want it to. Don't save. So File, Save All. And let me move this way over. There we go. All right, so we're going to start coding right now. All right, now, I'm not trying to confuse you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you two different ways, all right, of what we can do next. All right, and I'm going to show you one way. All right, and then I'm going to show you another way that it could have been done. So why am I showing you two different ways? Because one way is more graphical in nature and one way is more textual in nature. So fine. Well, sometimes with some of the commands you put in, you've got your choice. You can put them in the graphical way or in the textual way. With some of the commands, though, you need to use the textual way. And if you say, I don't understand, please bear with me for a couple minutes. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up to Tools. Those of you who next semester are in the AWD1100 class, the Database-Driven Website Development 2, we're going to do something very, very, very similar to this next semester. Not identical, but very similar. So I'm going to go up to Tools and I'm going to click that option. And then I'm going to go down halfway to where it says NuGet Package Manager. And what NuGet is, what this package manager is this is a way that Visual Studio provides that you can add things that have been written for you into your program. We've never done this before because we haven't. We do now. All right. We're going to literally add what's called the entity framework into our program right now. And it's going to involve us clicking a bunch of buttons. All right. And that's about it. Then I'm going to go back and show you how we could have done it without those bunch of buttons. So I went to Tools. Try it again. To Tools, to NuGet Package Manager, and the second thing down says Manage NuGet Packages for a Solution with 3 dots. I'm going to choose that one. And this is the graphical interface right here. All right. Now notice it says no packages found. And that's okay because it's telling me right now what's highlighted is installed. I haven't installed anything yet. That's exactly what it should say. If I go over to browse, now there's a whole bunch of stuff that I can add. I only want to add one of these right now. And again, I'm showing you how to add it graphically. Now I can come in here and just keep looking, and if I know what the name of the one I want is, or I can do what I'm going to do up here, which is I can search for it. And I want to type in as one word, entity framework. So capital ENTITY, capital FRAMEWORK. And you'll notice when I do that, there's a bunch of stuff that comes up in here that says either entity framework or Microsoft .entity framework. The one I want to choose is the first one, but I want to mention to you next semester, we will be using Microsoft Entity Framework Core.tools and Microsoft Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. For now, I'm going to choose Entity Framework. So I click on it and it brings it up over here. And it says where you want to install it. If I had a bunch of projects over here, it would show me each project. I only have one, and it's my database first. So that is where I want to install it. So I click here in the box that says project, and when I do that, one will be checked also. All right. Now I can install it. Typically, you're going to just about always install the most recent version, which is the one it gives you. So I'm going to click install. Now, before I click the install button, mine is going to look different than yours. You're going to get an option that basically says it worked, etc. Click OK. And then it has a checkbox there that says, if you don't want to see this anymore, check it. I checked that. So you're going to see two steps here. I'm going to jump right to step 2. So when I click install, this is step 2. And it says, hey, I'm about to put this thing into your program. Are you okay with that? And I click I accept. All right, now, did anything magical happen? Yes. If I go over to install now, which was previously empty, notice I've now got the entity framework in there. Now, what I'm going to show you now, you don't have to do this, but this is what I like to do. After I install something with NuGet, is I like to close this, reopen it, like we just did, and go back to installed just to make sure it's there. All right, and it is. Now, what if we didn't want to do it that way? Is there another way we could have done this? The answer is yes. All right. So if we wanted to do this in a non-graphical way, all right, I'm saying this again. If we wanted to do this in a non-graphical way, what we could have done, I'm going to show you the steps, but I'm not going to hit enter because we've already got the package installed. But we could have gone in and done tools, NuGet Package Manager, and instead of choosing Manage NuGet Packages for Solution like we did, we could have chosen this, which is Package Manager Console, also known as the PM. And when you do that, you get this. Notice it says PM for Package Manager. So what we could have done there, rather than what we did, is we could have typed in here. All right, we could have typed in here, and this is case insensitive, install dash package space, and then entity framework. I think it's one word like that, just like that. That would have done it in a non-graphical way. All right. Now, if I hit enter, I might even get an error that tells me the package has already been installed. It wouldn't hurt to try it again, but we could have done it that way. So when you're doing this, again, you can do it either in a graphical way or in a non-graphical way. I showed you the graphical way and actually did that. All right. A little bit later, we're going to be doing stuff in here where you have to do it using the package manager. All right. Okay. So I can leave this up if it's hurt anything, but I'm just going to lower it so it's down here. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to do next is different from what you've seen anything we've done all semester. We're going to use a wizard. So it's going to walk us through a lot of different things, but setting that up, that connection and doing some of that other stuff that we've manually been doing, it's going to do at least some of that for us. All right. Again, all these steps that I'm giving you right now, I've got them in a file and I'm going to give you those. Okay. So in Visual Studio, I want to right mouse click on my project name, not my solution, but my project name. So I'm going to right mouse click on this. All right. And I'm going to choose add and new item. Now you can say we did this before. We added classes. We're not going to add a class now. We could add a class right here. We don't want to do that. We want to go down about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we want to choose ADO.NET Entity Data Model. All right. This is a model that we're going to create. It'll be up in about 5 minutes. And it's going to show us, it's going to look a lot like a UML diagram. All right. And we really should give it a name because model is a crummy name. All right. It's not that you can't call it model. I guess it's model 1, but that is kind of a crummy name. Well, we're working with employees here. So I'm going to rename this as employee model. And I'm going to capitalize the E in employee and the M in model. All right. And this is going to bring up the wizard. We're not there yet. We're telling it we want to add this new model. So I'm going to click add. And boom, this brings up the entity data model wizard. All right. And I'm only going to talk about the stuff we're going to use. So you'll notice there's 4 options in here. If I click on any of them, it will change the description that's down here. All right, we're going to use this one. And that says EF, or Entity Framework Designer from Database. And notice what it says in here. Creates a model in the EF, or Entity Framework Designer, based on an existing database. We already created a database called Database First with a table, one table in it right now called Employee. It says you can choose the database connection, settings for the model, and database objects to include in the model. The classes your application will interact with are generated from the model. So ideally, when we get done with this, we will have a bunch more stuff in here, a bunch more. And I'll do that in a second. All right. But there'll be a bunch of stuff in here that we don't have right now. So we want to choose the EF designer from database. Okay. And I'm going to click next. Now, a little confusing here, but it says, okay, well, what connection do you want? And yours may be empty here. You may have something in here. The chances of what you having in there being correct are basically 0 when you first do this. So you will click the new connection option here. And it brings this up. Okay. And right now, a lot of this has been pre-set up for us, but I'm going to show everything in here. And you'll notice it says, well, what do we have here? Microsoft SQL Server SQL Client. That's what we want. And if I click the down arrow here, it says, please wait while we retrieve the list of servers. All right. And it says, there ain't none. You're like, well, geez, what am I supposed to do then? Well, hopefully you remember this, and that is not it. Let me open it. This is our server. We've used this before. We used this before when we made our connection. So I'm copying that, and I'm going to put that right in here, like that. Okay, now it says, how are you going to authenticate? Are you only going to use Windows authentication, which is what we're going to use, or you want to use SQL Server authentication, in which you'd need a username and a password? We don't want that. We're saying if you're logged in here to your Windows account, you're cool. There's other options in there for Azure. We talk about Azure in the AWD1100 class. That basically is, you use that when you want to put your database out, or in your whole project out on the internet. Let's not talk about it now. All right. Then in here, it says select or enter a database name. Well, if I click the down arrow, I've got a lot, but notice I've got AAA, I've got my widget, etc. One of the ones that's in here is Database First. That's the one we just created. All right. Now, what you can do then here is you can test this, click the button that says test connection. If this works, what will happen is you'll hear the probably the bell on the machine ring, and it'll say test succeeded. All right. So it says test connection succeeded. You don't have to do that. I like to do it just for my own peace of mind. All right. So I'm there. I'm not done yet. So now I click OK. And now it's set up my connection correctly with database first. Plus, it even shows me this is the stuff we had to enter previously ourselves. All right. So it's done all that stuff for me. Okay. And it says, okay, we've done that. If you don't want to show that, you can just click this and it'll go away. All right. I want to rename this. There's nothing wrong with database first entities, but I'm going to call it employee entities. One word. All right. So this is going to be then my connection. All right. And I'm going to click next. Now this is, I was going to say it might take some time. That's going to fill in. So it says, okay, what are you going to work with in here? Are you going to work with tables? Are you going to work with views? Are you going to work with stored procedures and functions? All right. We're going to work with tables. So I'm going to click that one in just a moment. A view is when you write queries and you save those. We don't have any views. A stored procedure is when you write your own routines and you save them. They're kind of like mini programs. We don't have any of those either. All right. So I'm going to click this arrow here by tables, and you'll notice it says under DBO, if I click that arrow, I've got one table and it's called employee. Well, that's what I want. So if I just click right here, the other ones are chosen as well. Now, this is my model is going to be called database first model, and that's fine. So now I can click finish. All right. And it came back. You might get this, you might not. All right. But all it says in here is, hey, you're doing some stuff here that could potentially be affected by what you're working with. In other words, it could be a security problem. There isn't. It's just warning you. If you don't want to show the message again, you can click here. I'm just going to click OK. Now, nothing new is here. There's nothing new in the program yet. All right, this will take a second. And I got the security warning again. I click OK again. It's funny, I didn't get this before, but that's okay. There it is. This is what's called my entity data model. All right, I think I can make this bigger. There we go. It looks like, it's not the same. It looks like a UML diagram. There's the name of my table. There's all the fields in my table. All right. And these navigation properties, for lack of better words, I don't have other tables in here, but it would show me how this table is linked to other tables. Now I think I can come onto this thing here. I can right mouse click on this. And if I want, let's see, there's other stuff I can do in here. Let's see. I can add stuff. I can refactor and rename stuff. But what I wanted to show you in here is, let's see. Not table mapping. Okay, so I don't need that. With one of the options, with one of the options that's in here, all right, it'll show you the type of each field. So in other words, if I click on that, remember which one it is, I'm sorry, but it would say like employee ID : int first name : varchar. All right. Now, some magic has happened. Even though you don't know this, some magic has happened. This is called, all right, this file, if I can move this down, and I hope I can, good. This file that we just created, we've actually got a whole new thing in here. And this is the employee model.edmx file, entity database, I think it's mapping file, EDMX. And actually, it's got some stuff to do with XML that I'm not going to get into. I think that's what the X is for. All right. This file represents a model. That's why it's a model. All right. And what it is it's a conceptual model that displays the mapping. It says, hey, we're about to create, actually, it's been created already, a class that is going to correspond to this. All right. And if that doesn't make sense, hopefully it will in just a moment. All right. So if I go in here, you may or may not notice it. All right. But this is my employee model.edmx file. There are two folders in here that are important. We're going to quickly look at both of them. There's this one and there is this one. They both start or end with .tt. All right, there's some kind of a translation file. But if I go in here and I bring up employee model.context.cs, this is code that has been generated for us. All right. Do you need to worry about that? No. But even though I'm showing this to you, never manipulate this code yourself. Don't make changes in it. All right. It's very important that you don't make changes in it. All right. What's important in here, the only thing you have to realize is if I arrow down to the bottom, is this. This says that I have created in here, and I should have made it capitalized, but it's okay. I'm making a set of type employee that's going to be called employees. All right, this DB set is going to be very important more next semester. All right, so that's the first one. I'm going to close that. Now, under this other one that's in here, employee model.tt, if I open that up, you'll notice it's got two files in it. The first one says employee.cs. That should look mighty familiar to you. That's the same kind of class that we have been creating. All right. Notice they're all public. What I'm going to start doing in the 1115 class is everything I create is going to be capitalized. That should really be capitalized and the field name should be. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just more convention to do it that way. But this is fine. So it created a class for us. All right. Is that big a thing? It kind of is. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to come in to my main program. So I'm going to close this and I'm going to close this and I'm not going to save it because I did make some changes to it. So I'm going to go back to my program here. And now, again, I do have this file in here. I've got that class. All right. But now what I want to do in main is a couple things. All right. And what I'm going to do, I'm taking this off of my notes that I have out here just because if I key it in myself, there's a good chance I'm going to screw it up. And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to come in here and do all three of these. So here's the first one. All right. So in my program here, what did I just do? Well, I created what's called a context. All right. I created what's called a context, which is what we're going to use to map. We're going to use to map our program to our database. Now, it says here new employee and it's not finding it. All right. And it says, well, what do you want to do in here? Again, it's interesting. I want to make that little employee because that's what we called it in here. That's why we got the error. If I'd have made them all uppercase, it would have been fine. All right. So it looks like I screwed this up. That should say equal. That should say equal. So what are we doing? I'm creating a new context, and I'm going to add an employee. The employee's ID will be 1. The first name will be Jeff. The last name will be Scott. The address will be 751 Parr Road. The city will be Wentzville, the state, Missouri. The zip 63385. The phone number 214-386-3675. The department code 1, the salary. And again, it's just numbers I made up. Again, this will have to be a lowercase e because I screwed up. All right. And then we're telling it, okay, we've done all this, save the changes. So this should create a new record for us. Let me go back to here and fix this because that should have said equal. That should have said equal. All right. And everything else should be fine. So that should, if this works, that should give me a new employee. But let's put in the other two. Or again, I have to put in an equal sign here and an equal sign here. This will have to be a little e because I screwed up. So will that. And save changes. Finally, we'll have one more. Again, fix that equal sign. Fix that equal sign. Oopsie. Make that a little e. All right. And if we've done this right, when we get done, we will be coming in and adding 3 records. This is add the first record right here. So add record number 1. All right. Then down here, after we do that and save, we will add record number 2 and number 3. It looks like I'm missing a semicolon there, which means I'm missing it. That should be a little e again. And it doesn't like context.save changes. It's not an error. It's because, again, on this line, I didn't put a semicolon. So that should have fixed all the errors. So what I'm doing is I'm adding here manually. All right, that's an E, little e. Now, notice every time after I do this, I'm adding it and I'm saving the changes. I'm adding it and I'm saving the changes. And here I added it and saved the changes. I'm not sure if this will work or not, but I'm going to see if I can just add it once. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab this line. And this is telling it to add employee 1 and add employee 2 and add employee 3. And when I get done, it's telling me to save the changes. All right, so I'm going to do here a file save all. I'm going to run the program. If it doesn't give me any errors here, and it doesn't look like it did, I think it worked. Now, how do I know? Well, remember, this is a console program, and I have literally put nothing in. All right, there's no GUI, and I put no write lines or anything else in here. So how do I know whether or not it worked? Well, I'm going to go back and do this. I'm going to go back, and in my DB employee right here, I am going to right mouse click on it. In fact, let's refresh the database first. And all refresh is doing is it's making sure any changes I've made for sure have been applied. So here's my database first. There is my employee table. and I'm going to say view the data. And lo and behold, there's Jeff Scott, there is Evan Gudmested, and there is Charles Corrigan. So all three of them have been put in. All right. Now, what I'm going to do, not in front of you, but I'm going to drop this and I'm going to recreate this. Why? When I recreate it, I'm going to go back to my steps. All right. And in here, I'm going to make that a capital E because that's the way it should have been. I'm going to take everything that was lowercase and I'm going to make it uppercase. Why? Because again, that's just the way you should do it by convention. All right. So jump through this real quick. Well, I don't want to do it in front of you. I don't want to waste your time. So what you have seen right now is what we were able to do in here was to go in and first create our database. Okay. And based off of that, we created the class. And if we had in here multiple databases, it would have created multiple classes for us. Now, okay, let's just assume in here that you're like, okay, I sort of get what you're talking about. Yeah, I sort of get it, but you know, what if I wanted a better example than the junk you're throwing at us? Okay, well then, if you want to, all right, so if you want more information, make this bigger. All right, you can go out and I'm going to give you this URL, but there is an article that is out on Learn Microsoft that is literally called Getting Started with Entity Framework 6 Database First using MVC 5. Don't worry about the using MVC part, but if you bring that up with Entity Framework 6, where is it? There it is. It's pretty long. Doesn't look like it, but it's in all this stuff that's in here. But notice what it does. Create the web application and the data models. So you come in here, it's an ASP.NET. Don't worry about that. You could create it as what we've been doing. It doesn't matter. But it shows you how you bring in the entity framework. It shows you how you generate the models. They've got 3 tables in here, how the models are connected or related to one another. And then you can go on if you want to. All right. So it's got a whole bunch of stuff in here that you can do. And again, I will give you that URL. All right. Okay. So let me come back here. Okay. And I'm just going to do a file, save all. All right. And I'm going to close this. Okay. Now, what I showed you earlier, and I don't know where it is, it's probably here, was this PowerPoint. We just did a database first. We only had one table. We designed our table, and based off of us doing our program run, we had the entity framework generate for us the class that was associated to this with this. All right. We're now going to do it the other way. We're going to do it the code first way. Now, you may or may not remember this, but if I bring this back up, this was what we did with the MySQL stuff. But if I bring this back up, this is PHP MyAdmin. It'll come up in a moment. All right. And we had this Acme widget, and this is the one we've been working with, the employees. The names might be different, but the idea is the same. All right. But we also had in there a department table with 7 departments and a state table with 53 entries in it. The 50 states, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia. In fact, I don't even think those are in here, but they're in our other one. It doesn't matter. All right, why am I telling you this? Because what I'd like to do before I want to put out a copy of what we just did, but I want to fix it. When I say fix it, I want to add to it so that it's going to have inside of this database first example. All right, what it's going to have in it then is all three of these tables. So you can see the domain model with all three of the tables in it. All right, and you can see the linkages, etc. All right, so let me close this. And let's do our other one, okay? Now let me quit this, which is going to give me an error because of the way mine is set up. I have to manually close it from in here, which is a pain, but it's okay. There we go. Just did the database first. We're not doing the model first because it's not done often by anybody, but we're going to do the code first now. Now, before we do this, just so you're aware of it, and I just showed you this, is getting started with Entity Framework 6, database first using MVC5. All right, I'm going to come in here, I'm going to paste that in, and I'm going to change the word database to the word code. So it's using code first. And lo and behold, there's the same program that I just showed you, but it's done using code first. All right, now we're going to do this ourselves right now. All right, the steps are going to be different. We're doing a different thing. All right, so we're going to do the code first. All right now. All right, my guess is we'll be done sometime around 11 o'clock. When I get done with this, I want to go back and review one more time the note that I sent you or the email I sent you this morning. Okay. All right, so let's come in here and do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I've now got this database first. Again, I'm going to probably throw that away and redo it using capitals, etc., like I should have done to begin with. I'll do that the right way on this one. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to again start up Visual Studio, which is not running right now. I'm not going to make a database first, but I'm going to create a new project. It will again be a console app. This one will be called Code First. It'll be put in the folder called Code First in a moment. The solution name will be Code First. And again, it will be put into a folder. And that folder will be called Code First. So Code First, Code First, Code First, create. And there's that. Now, all I'm going to do in here, it says code first. Okay. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to create a database, but I'm not going to put anything in it. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to create a database called code first and put nothing in it. All right. So I'm going to come into here. I'm going to right mouse click on databases, choose add new database, type in code first, hit enter, and it's in here someplace, code first. There's no tables in there. No tables I've created. There's no tables. All right. So I'm going to attempt to come in here, all right, and create a class and then run on, not a wizard again, but put some code in here and boom, make the system create that database table for me. All right. So I could literally come in and just put the class right in here. You can have a class file within this, but I'm going to make a different one. So I'm going to right mouse click on here. All right. I'm going to choose add new item. It's going to be a class. And I'm going to call it employee.cs. All right, so oops, I made that code first, so that's bad. Can I rename this from here? Let's see. Rename code first, include everything. Hit enter. That should have fixed it. Okay, now I've got this code first. All right, and just to show you how similar these are, I'm going to go back to my last program in the database first we just created. And I'm going to find, there's that, let's see, model. There's that employee.cs. All right, I'm going to grab that. This is the same stuff. So I'm going to grab all of that so I don't have to type it in again. All right. And now I'm going to go put it into my new program right here that we're working on. But I'm going to make these the way they should have been. So this is going to be capital E, capital F, capital L. And you don't have to make this one a cap, but you can. It doesn't matter. N, A. I'm going to go back and change the other one later, the one we just did, so it looks like this as well. All right, so they're all capitalized now. These are eventually going to become fields in our table. Our table will be called employee. All right, so we've done all that. Now, not a bad time to come in here and do a save. All right, so I've got both my class, and I'm going to make that public. We always talked about making our classes that we create public. So I'm going to make that public. I don't know if it would work as internal or not. I don't care. All right. So now, for now at least, I'm going to put this one away. So I'm just going to close it and I'm going to go back into here. Now I'm in main. All right. This is my program. Now I am going to have to add some code in here. But above main, I want to add a few lines of code. So underneath where it says internal class program, but above where it says public class main. So right here, I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to put in a few lines. We'll go over what they mean in just a minute. Don't worry if we get errors here and I have to change stuff, it'll all be fixed in a matter of moments. So we want this to say employee DB context, but we want this to say DB context. And it's giving us an error. And it's because we'll need a using statement that's not in here right now. So if I come down here, it'll say, what do you want to do? All right. And it says rename this, generate this, change DB to no. Let's see. Let's try to add this one and see if it fixes it. I don't know if it will or not. This using Entity Framework Core. All right. So let's try putting that in there. This may or may not fix it, but it will be fixed. Using Microsoft dot entity framework core. All right. So it's still giving me an error. Why is it giving me that error? Well, because again, it depends on the order in which you do these things. What we did is okay. It really and truly is okay. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in this public DB set employee, employees, Get set. And you'll notice again, it's giving errors. Well, we have to fix those errors, of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do very much in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to try a few things. Okay. We're going to see if that fixes it. If it does, great. If it doesn't, we'll have to come up with something else. So if I look here and I click there, whoops. It says, well, what we can do is generate a new class named DB context. No, we don't want to do that. It says we can do this. We don't want to do that either. So it says, well, do you want to install this package? One of them is, do we want to install Entity Framework? Do we want to install that package? Yeah, let's do that and see if that fixes this error. Now we're going to do it just like we did it before, but instead of doing it and doing it visually, we'll do it the other way. So I'm going to click Tools, NuGet Package Manager, Package Manager Console, which is the first one. And then I'm going to come up here and say install hyphen package and then entity framework. Hit enter. Now let's look at what it did here. All right, so here's what we typed in right there. Attempting to get information, so it's getting a bunch of system information, and then it's adding the newest version, which is 6.4.4. It's executing a script for us that it wrote, and it's installing it. That is, again, the same thing. And don't worry, we're still getting an error, but we're going to fix it in a minute. All right. That is the same thing as if we had gone in and done a tools, NuGet Package Manager, manage NuGet packages in solution. Notice it already added it, but it's the same thing as if we went over here, browsed for Entity Framework, and added it. So you've now seen both doing it from a command line and a non-command line. All right. Is that big a thing? No. I guess no and yes. How's that? Sort of. Now, if you remember from the last program that we did, this last one that we just did, all right, that one of the things, I think we had to add this at the beginning. It's not showing it there. I thought we did. All right, no problem. What I decided to do, just so you're aware of it, what I decided to do was I went and did the example that we did first, that simple, or that CRUD example, the one I'm having some problems with. I did that before I did these. With these, I watched a couple videos and I said, I'm not even going to try it. I want to do it in front of the class. Why? Because if I screw up, you're going to screw up too. It's just going to happen. All right. If I screw up, you're going to screw up too. Like I said, it's just going to happen. All right. So we came in, we created our console app. All right. I think I should have installed the Entity Framework first. I didn't. But we came in and we created our new class, an external class file called employee.cs that looked like this. All right. We did that in Visual Studio the same way we've been doing it. All right. Then we started to come in and add stuff into here. Now, it is still giving us an error right here. I'm looking for a using statement. There it is. Using system.dataEntity. And notice my errors are all gone. Now, a natural question then would be, fine, groovy, fantastic. What the hell is this? And what the hell is this? Well, If you remember from our last example that we did previously, all right? And I'm going to bring that one up just for a second, not the whole thing. All right, but if you remember what happened, I showed you these TT files and all that stuff that was in there. All right, and the first thing I showed you was this one. And down at the bottom, we had a line in there. I think I brought up the wrong file here, but we'll find it. That isn't it either. Otherwise, I'll have to bring the program back up again to find it. Either, let me bring it up just to show it to you. All right, this is the one we just did, the database first. All right. And when we looked at the files that were in here, I showed you those TT files. And one of them, I got to remember which it is. There it is. Made this line for us. Public virtual DB set employees get set. All right. Why am I showing you that? Why should you even care? Well, I'm going to put this in as a comment. Look familiar? Now it said virtual before, and that doesn't matter. DB set employees. We are now manually setting up for us. We are manually setting up this context file. Remember, this is going to allow our program, using this, our program to communicate with our database. I want to say that again. This is going to allow our program to communicate with our database. Now, when we did this before, it was kind of neat. We had to put on a line that basically set up our connection string for us. We've got to do that again, but the way we're doing it, we've got to do it a little bit differently. All right, so I have to open up this file called app-config, and this has got all of the configuration options for the program. All right, and I'm going to add something new down at the bottom. And again, I'm going to copy it from my stuff. Why? Because I've already got it in there and I don't want to screw it up. There it is. So what we're doing in here in this app.config is we are setting up what is called our connection string. There it is. It says that we're going to be using the name called employee context. That name must be the same name as what I used here. Since here I called it employee DB context, I either have to change that one or change this one. Let's just call this employee context right there. Okay, so that is saying this is a connection string we're about to add. We're giving it a name. We're calling it employee context. Then there's our connection string. Look familiar? Data source equal, same stuff we had before. Nothing new right there. Initial catalog equal, that's the name of our database. All right, so this one is going to be called How did we name that? Was it capitalized? Yes, database first. So our database is, and I don't think it matters if we capitalization matters, sometimes it doesn't. All right, so catalog equal that integrated security that we had before, which says I'm using the built-in Windows security. All right, I don't think I want that in there. And the provider name, which is system.data.sql client. So this is the connection string that I am providing. I'm naming it. I'm saying what our data source is, which is our local machine. I'm saying that we're using Windows security and our provider name. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. All right, so let me do a file save all in here. And I should be able to close this for now. Now, the problem is, this program has not been yet told that we can do what are called migrations. What a migration is any time that you're going to make a change to the database, you create what's called a new migration. Now, does that make sense? Maybe it makes no sense. But when you're working like we are in here with these database first, let me clear this. I think I can just type in clear. There we go. All right. But all I have to do is just one time. You only have to do this once per project. I'm going to type in here enable hyphen migration and hit enter. Okay, it doesn't like that. It might be migrations or they may not. Okay, it's enable migrations. Okay, so I copied it wrong in my notes. So it's checking, it says, it's doing a bunch of internal stuff. I have no idea what that take 30 seconds. It may take a minute. That's it. Boom. Okay, so on my notes, I want to change that back to enable migrations. Again, this must only be done once per project. All right, now we're going to go in and we're going to add this command right here. Again, from the package manager. So this enable migrations, we must do from the command line. This we must also do from the command line. Now, please look up on the screen here. You'll see we have a folder, and that folder is named migrations. There is one file in it called configuration.cs. That was created from or by the system. We did not do that ourselves. All right. So we want to keep going. And again, every time we make a change to our code, we're going to have to add a new migration. Now, this is a name, and it's going to create a new file in here that you're going to see in a minute. You don't really need to put in the double quotes, and you shouldn't put blank spaces in the name. You should run it together like I did. This is telling me this is my initial setup. I hit enter. Again, may take a few seconds, may take it. Now you'll notice I get a bunch of code here that's in yellow. All right, I'm saying this again. And I get a bunch of code that's here that's in yellow. It's not a warning. It's not an error. It's telling me, hey, you got a new file in here. It's got today's date on it, 2023-0807. It's got another number on it. I don't know what that number means. I thought it was a timestamp, but I don't think it is because it's saying 1599-161. But then it's got an underscore that same name I gave it, setup. All right. So it created a file for us. What? Who cares? We should care. All right. I'm going to close this and I'm going to open up that file that it just created right here. All right. And it's totally wrong. And it's probably because I left that open before. And I wish I wouldn't have. So let me do this. I'm going to remove that migration. That's okay. It gives me a chance to show you that I can remove a migration. And how do you remove a migration? I don't remember. Let's see. Scaffolding. Let's see if I can just type in remove migration. No. All right. It's drop or something like that. Remove migration. You need to give it the name. Okay. So remove migration and then the name of the migration. Okay, this was my migration right here. Right there, not the .cs, but everything else. So I want to remove that because I screwed up. So remove hyphen migration, and I'm going to paste in the name of that migration. Right there, and hit enter. Still doesn't like something. Oh, it's okay. I didn't, it might be remove space type migration. Let's see. Doesn't like that either. The word remove is not recognized. Check the spelling. So it doesn't like that. I thought it was drop, but I don't think that's going to work either. Doesn't like that. Son of a gun. Well, technically we can just remove the file, but that's not good practice to do that. So let me clear this. All right, we'll call this setup 2. And hit enter. Unable to generate because the following are pending. Apply the pending. Okay, all right. I didn't think I'd have to do this, but I'm going to type in here update database. Hit enter. It's thinking about it. All right, clear. So let's try to see if we can add a second migration right there, setup 2. All right. And let's wait. There's the setup 2. Now let's see when I open this, if this is what I want to show you. Wow, this is not good, Jeff. What this is supposed to do, and it's not doing it, is this up method should be creating the tables and stuff for us. Why isn't that working? I don't know. You know, I look at the in this up method, what we're supposed to have in there is it's supposed to build the table that we want. And when we run that update database that we just looked at, it's supposed to basically create the table for us. The down is when we want to remove the stuff that's in there. Now, I'm trying to figure out for the life of me if I skipped a step or did whatever, but I didn't think I did. But I do believe that if we come in here and we look under our tables, under our code first, our table has not been created. That's system tables, that's external tables, and that's these drop tables. These system tables are not ours. All right. Now, because I like to be honest and totally transparent with all of you, all right, what I am going to do, let's see. I'm going to probably end up rebuilding this project anyway, so I'm going to come in here to this migrations, and I'm going to delete this. You should never do this yourselves, but I'm removing all those folders. I'm removing everything that was in there. All right, let me clear. Let me again enable the migration. See if I can get that command. That was a long time ago. There, enable migrations. I'm just trying to see if I can fix this. If I can't, I'll go back and redo the whole thing. I don't care. I'll do it in another lecture. All right. So we've enabled the migration again. You typically only have to do that once. It made this, and now I've got nothing in there. All right. That I should say for now. Do an add migration. Again, we call this, it's a typical name, is just initial setup. And this shouldn't be empty, but for whatever frigging reason it is. And I don't know why. So I'm going to have to go back and look at that again, which means what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo this, but I want to explain to you exactly what I'm going to do. So there's going to be 2 tapes today. First one, this one will be about 2 hours and 47 minutes. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo this code first one and just fix up my naming convention. And go back to this code first. All right. Now, before I finish up, this is the email that I sent out this morning. I want to go over it again with you so everybody has heard it. Okay. Again, as it says, before we begin, I have something to share with you. And believe me, I do not normally do things like this. But that said, I don't like to share things about my personal life with anybody. But my oldest daughter is pregnant and she's due to give birth this Wednesday. My wife and I are planning on being there for an email from me tomorrow or a Thursday that I'm going to the hospital. And if that's the case, it'll automatically be a lab period. Otherwise, today, I first went over that simple CRUD. That one I'm going to still try to fix. And then we went over these 2 mini apps. The first one actually worked just fine, the database first. All right. But the code first had problems. All right. Now, tomorrow, just so you're aware of this, tomorrow, rank-in typically 1 time per year, and they tend to pick summer because not all teachers teach during the summer. They require us to take a 3-hour class. This one is on coaching and mentoring for success. It is scheduled to be tomorrow at the Wentzville campus from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. So tomorrow, I am going to go to that class unless my daughter goes into labor. So I will be from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. When the class ends, again, unless my daughter goes into labor before or during that class, I am going to get into my car and drive home. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, but this way I don't have to worry about bringing my computer with me tomorrow to this, and I don't really want to do that. All right. So when I come back, I'll get online, but tomorrow will be lab for the entire period. All right. On Wednesday, again, if my daughter has not yet given birth or doesn't give birth on Wednesday, I'm going to give you a bunch of hints for the final project. I'm going to show you what I have done for my final project. All right. I'm still working on it. I've done very little. I might do it right in front of you. I don't know. I will not save this as a GitHub repo Wednesday or Thursday. All right. But it'll be out there if it'll help you. As of right now, then, and this could change depending on when my daughter goes into labor, all next week will be lab. All right. Now, the last time you can possibly turn anything in, anything, is going to be Thursday at midnight. All right. And what that means is Friday morning, I'll have to do grading. I don't want to do that. All right. Because I've got other stuff I've got to do Friday for Rankin, and our grades are due Friday by noon. So if by either, even if it's Wednesday for everything you turn in, and that is your e-portfolio, your final project, and any late work. All right. That'll make it easier for me to grade. Now, under the please remember again. Now, I've already been told this morning, I'm not up to date. I might have missed something. So if you turned in something, go out to Inside Rankin, and if you turn in something and you say, hey, I turned in this homework and you didn't grade it, just send me an email and let me know. It's all you got to do. And I'll go back and regrade it. If you didn't take a test, but now you've taken it, all right, do the same thing. But look at your current grade in Inside Rankin. I will accept any all late work. This is when I'd like that turned in by midnight Wednesday. So I've got time Thursday to grade it. After that, anything that's in the book as a 0 will stay a 0. For your final project and for your e-portfolio, I'll take both of them by midnight. As always, if you have any questions, please email me. If you've got anything to say, hey, you didn't grade this, please email me. The easier you make it for me, the faster I can find it, grade it, and get it back, and put out on Inside Rankin. All right, so again, last time, what I'm going to do right now, all right, after I finish this lecture, which I'll be done in about a minute or two, I'm going to go back to this CRUD application. I'm going to see if I can fix whatever errors I had in there. Then I'm going to update it and put it out there. Okay, then I'm going to rebuild, but I'm going to do all the capitalization in the right way. So that'll be out there. Then I'm going to see if I can figure out what the heck went wrong with the code first one. Put that out there. I don't know if this next lecture will be an hour, 2 hours, more, less, whatever. I don't know. All of them will be put out onto the system, or both of them, this afternoon. As always, if you have any questions about anything or statements to make or whatever, please, the faster you get a hold of me, the more time you're giving me to grade and get stuff back to you. Okay? All right. Any questions, comments, problems, etc.? jpscott@rankin.edu. I believe you all already know that. Okay, so with that, I guess it's what, 10:55? All right. So I will be back with try to fix these things and come back with one last lecture a little bit later. Probably I'll start it up in about, I'm going to guess, a half an hour. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you then. And if I don't, I'll see you tomorrow at 8:05. Hopefully. No, tomorrow's the lab day. Take that back. See you Wednesday at 8:05. Have a good day.